Thank you. Members, now we're on file item number 18. The author is Mayor Pro Tem Vandermark. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to introduce your item?
So I'll read most of it. I'll try to be quick.
Take your
It's
time.
kind of late.
Take your time. Take your time.
So it has been a long-standing problem in public education that children have been exposed to obscene and age-inappropriate material by adults. And yes, many who are educators we have entrusted with our children. Not too long ago, I learned that our city public library also provided similar obscene materials to our youth in the form of obscene and sometimes pornographic children's books and other materials. Our city libraries should not be engaged in infecting our children with obscenity or pornography. The Department of Justice goes on and says that the federal law strictly prohibits the distribution of obscene material to minors. Any transfer or attempt to transfer such material to a minor under the age of 16, including over the internet, is punishable under federal law. In addition, visual representations such as drawings, cartoons, or paintings that appear to depict minors engaged in sexual activity are obscene and are also illegal under federal law. While the Department of Justice may not present the entire legal analysis and controlling authorities here, this publicly available information by one of our top federal agencies should be instructive of the applicable legal standards for obscenity, the gravity against allowing this kind of material around our children. I do have some censored images of obscene or pornographic children's books in the PowerPoint presentation. The full uncensored versions of the images were not able to be shown here tonight because doing so could very well violate the very same federal laws and possibly other laws mentioned here. The city should take action to make these books, materials, and others like them unavailable to our children in or around our city facilities. Because of the delicate balance required to maintain First Amendment rights while protecting our children from unprotected, obscene, and/or pornographic materials, such books and other materials should be submitted to the city attorney for legal analysis, evaluating our First Amendment protections. So I'd like to direct the city manager to work with the city attorney to return to the city council. I'd like to modify this to September of this year with a proposed ordinance for the city's libraries and other public facilities to make obscene and/or pornographic material both in hard copy and digitally, electronically unavailable to minors, with the city attorney evaluating the materials under the First Amendment. The ordinance should also present the policy for procurement, which would include new screening protocols for books, materials, content yet to be acquired by the library or other city facilities that are intended for children at our public facilities by screened or obscene and/or pornography. The ordinance should also present findings and authorities for obscenity within the meaning of the First Amendment. I don't believe we have children in here, but if anybody's watching at home and there are children, I suggest you remove them from the room. These are just a few examples. I will not read from every book, but I will provide some examples of material that I believe a child should review, but only if the parent is informed of what's in these books, if the parent allows them. This one does have explicit images. Could we go to the next one? The next one? Next one? No, this is in the children's section, just to clarify. I'm talking about these. Anyway, so these books are not censored.
Hold on. We've had 6 hours of public debate. It's her item. Give her respect. We gave you respect.
Can you just tell us the name of the book, please?
Okay, so I will read just a small excerpt from this book.
We would like to know if what we're seeing is what's being displayed on the screen versus
You're welcome to come take a look at the books right after. Right now, I will read the books. Boys usually start having wet dreams at puberty. Wet dreams occur during sleep when the boy is having pleasurable, exciting, or sexy dreams, and they ejaculate some semen. When the boy wakes up, his pajamas or sheets may be wet and sticky from the ejaculation. The term for a wet dream is nocturnal emission. Nocturnal emission means occurring at night. A boy's first ejaculation often happens during a dream. Some people think that masturbation is wrong or harmful, and some religions call masturbation a sin. But masturbating cannot hurt you, and it does not result in pregnancy or getting or passing on infections that may spread by sexual contact. Many people masturbate, many don't. Whether you masturbate or not is your choice. Masturbating is perfectly normal. When people masturbate, they usually rub their sex organs with their hands or with something soft like a pillow. A girl often rubs her clitoris. A boy rubs his penis. Both the clitoris and the penis are sensitive to touch. A person may have a warm, good, tingly, exciting feeling all through his or her body while masturbating. This feeling can become more and more intense until it reaches a peak of climax. At that moment, the male may ejaculate. The female may feel strong, exciting sensations just in the area around her vulva and throughout her body. A female may also feel some wetness in her vagina. This book is also in the children's section. The clitoris has many nerve endings. Touching this area of the body can give you exciting, tingly kinds of feelings. In fact, the clitoris is an organ of sexual pleasure for females. If you continue masturbating long enough, you may have an orgasm. Some other terms for having an orgasm are climaxing, coming, or getting off. Some orgasms are very powerful and strong, others are less intense. A less intense one might be described as a lovely, shivery feeling. A powerful one might feel like an explosion, a spasm of intense sexual pleasure that begins in the genitals and pulses through the body. Most people agree that an orgasm is a very good feeling. That's why experts say masturbation is an excellent way of learning how your body reacts and practicing for your adult life. For young girls whose bodies are not ready for tampons, they help you with that too. If your hymen opening is too tight to allow for tampon insertion, you can stretch it yourself. This should be done gently and slowly over many days or weeks. Here's how you do it. First, you put KY jelly on your fingers. Don't use petroleum jelly or any lotion that contains perfumes or chemical additives. Insert your fingers into your vagina opening as far as it is comfortable. Then apply pressure by pressing downward towards your anus. Keep the pressure on for a few minutes, then release it. You can repeat this several times during each session. The next time, increase the pressure. Slowly work your way up to inserting 2 fingers. Once you can do that, apply pressure to the sides of your vagina entrance too. Continue this session until you are fully comfortable inserting a tampon. This one was in the teen section, grades 7 through 12, but can be checked out and fully accessible to any child without parent knowledge, consent. I do not really notice any funky smell, and that taste isn't terrible either. It's kind of like iced tea with a dash of salt, a vague, sweet sort of salty. I thought it would be like a murky swamp. It's not. Vagina smells like vagina. Vagina tastes like vagina, and I like it. Courtney's pubic hair starts tickling the tip of my nose, which is about to make me sneeze. Fuck, that would suck. So I push my face further into her folds, pressing my nose and mouth more into her. I can now feel her pubes in my tongue. They don't taste gross either. I don't know if this is my saliva or some sort of wet coming from Courtney's vagina, but I feel a liquid starting to spread across my lips and trickle down my chin. Then she moans. I must be doing something right. So these are in the teen section. When I mentioned that this material was provided in schools for our kids, that's actually how I got here today. I took books that the state of California recommended for our children. I purchased every single book and I reviewed it. And then I decided to check into our library, and the books were there. The state of California schools, since I got a lot of pushback because I mentioned the schools, the state of California did recommend this book as a school-wide read for grades 9 through 12. This teaches deeper manual simulation or fisting. Deeper manual sex or manual sex with more than a finger or two is not called fisting because you make it a fist and try to put it into a vagina or anus, which is unlikely to be anything but painful, if not impossible. Rather, fisting involves starting manual sex with 1 or 2 gloved fingers, and then lube, add as you go, and slowly working your way up more as it is pleasurable for a receptive partner. If a whole hand is wanted or both partners or 4 fingers feel good, the performing partner can then tuck his or her thumb into the palm of the inside of their hands and make the whole hand as slim as possible, then slide upwards. Once the fingers up gently and rhythmically, or go up and down as is comfortable for their partner. Yes, this was recommended as a school-wide read for children. It also teaches you blood play, how to play with blood, urine, sex toys, BDSM, sadomasochism. There's a section here for edge play. Edge play is generally referred to as sexual activity that crosses the line of what is physically or emotionally safe, sane, or consensual by taking serious risks with one's life or health. Some examples are breath restriction or blood play, engaging in planned abduction or forms of humiliation, and exploring fantasies that may trigger fears or particularly strong adverse reactions like incest. Many aspects of the approaches to BDSM can be edge play, but can things like having intercourse without birth control, neglect safer sex practices, and engaging in any kind of sex you know you don't really want or feel ready for? It also teaches minors how to make sex toys out of socks, bottles, and other household items because it clearly states here that minors can't purchase them. There are many books in here. I'm just not going through all of them. But there is inappropriate content in this. And I do believe that parents have a right to know what is in some of these books before they check them out for their children. I've never proposed a ban. Councilmember Kalmick and Moser did a great job sharing misinformation and flaming those fires. As a matter of fact, congratulations on monetizing this issue because I saw the email you sent bringing this meeting up and then asking for a donation for your campaign. Yeah, I'm talking about my item. So what I am asking is that we look into different ways to protect kids from this. Parents, check these books out. If this is what you want for your kids, go for it. But a lot of parents don't know this material is in these books. A lot of parents don't know these books are in the library. I know this because I've been doing this for 6 years. When I tell people there is a book in there that teaches children how to fist safely, play with blood, urine, they said I was crazy and I was a conspiracy theorist. They never imagined it was in our schools. They never imagined it was in our libraries, but it was. These are safeguards to protect our kids. Now, the book Gender Queer, it was actually in the teen section as well. That one complaint in the year 2020 came from me. I filed that complaint. I asked them to review that book. First, I asked them, do we allow pornography, obscene material? They said no. I showed them the book. They saw the title, and that's when they said, well, we're trying to create a more diverse collection for our youth. I didn't think having images of 2 young people performing oral sex was appropriate. It was a battle. I did go through the process that's currently in place right now, not without being treated pretty disrespectfully by the former librarian. She's no longer with the city. But eventually the book was moved to the adult section. But that is not where it was originally. So what I am proposing is that we put whether it is a sticker on the book that lets the parents know it's sexually graphic, whether it is, I don't know, a section, whatever it is, we are open to any ideas that staff, our city attorney, or the community comes up with. Because I'll tell you, that book, that Gender Queer, before they moved it out, I only learned about that book because a 10-year-old handed it to me. By the time these books get to the complaints, by then a child has already seen the book. So we're trying to protect it. I just don't understand why anybody has a problem with warning parents that some of this material is in these books. Not banning them, not removing them, but letting the parents know so they can make an informed decision. And that is what I'm asking for today. As far as our city attorney, we're not asking for him to review the books. I'm not even asking for us to review the books. I've had plenty of people here come and tell me how I don't have a degree. I don't have to have a degree to have common sense. What I'd like for our city attorney, if you don't mind clarifying, what would your role be within this process?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear by the plain read of the H item itself, and then correct me if I'm wrong, because this is your H item, but it only says that I would review and provide a legal analysis, not a policy analysis, but a legal analysis and evaluation for First Amendment protections. So, you know, for all of the comments about how I would be dictating and robbing children of their right to see these materials, it actually is, my role in the process is to make sure if there's something that's brought to leadership as objectionable, whether that leadership is the librarian or the city manager or whoever, it could come to me to protect First Amendment, to do an evaluation and analysis. I can't imagine that there's many of these books that would even come to my attention. But that's how I see my role based on earlier conversations and the way the H item's written. Not to be scouring through, you know, thousands and thousands of books and making policy decisions.
Can I ask the city attorney? Well, I just want to follow up on the city attorney. I know when I was shocked at some of the content, and I tend to be a little bit more libertarian, but the movie industry has gone to G, PG, PG-13, R, NC-17. Is that something that can be done with books? I'm not familiar, because I know they do that with movies, but do they do that with books at all?
Yeah, and you can do that with books, and the council or a subcommittee or other leadership, there's a whole host of ideas, whether they're rated, they're put in a different location so parents have to check them out. There's a whole bunch of measures that can be put in place that don't violate free speech.
Right.
That are completely legally permissible. So there are a bunch of things that can be done. It's just a matter of what is going to be done.
My understanding is, again, I'm only talking about movies because we're all familiar with that in our society. I believe my understanding of the Radar movie, but if you're the parent, you're allowed as a parent or guardian to bring them into a Radar movie if you so desire to do that with your child.
It probably depends on the movie theater. You're allowed to show your minor a Radar movie at home.
Okay.
I don't know if the theater will go for that, but yeah.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that clarification.
I just wanted to reiterate, we're not banning books. We're not restricting adults from checking out the books. We're not restricting materials to any specific gender. Ms. Bolton, these are not LGBT-specific books. These are for parents, and any gender can check them out, so I want to clarify that point. I'm just trying to put safeguards in place to protect our kids. I was a library page. That was my first job as right after high school, and I guarantee you this was not in our libraries then. As in life, as technology improves, there are advancements, we have to review our policies and update it to meet the needs of the community with those changes from the advances. Why can't we do that for our libraries too? This material was not there then, it is there now. Parents have no idea this is in there. So why not take precautions to protect one child if that's what what this does?
Or even educate.
Yeah, and I did speak to the media today. I showed them the books. I read them the excerpts. I told them, please print it. Show me that it's not obscene. Please print it. Not a single one wanted to print what was in any of these books because they thought it was too obscene. But yet our kids can just walk on out and read them. Even like the books that are in the adult section, people can check them out. They can sit on the table, leave them there, a child picks them up. I guess I'm just having a really hard time understanding why people have a problem with protecting our children from material that they may or may not be mentally mature enough to handle.
Right.
And yes, it's the parents' rights if they know the material is in the books and they don't know that. You have no idea how many times I've been called a conspiracy theorist because they thought I was lying about this book or this book or this book. So
And-
that is where we're at.
So, okay. Again, we had over 6 hours of public hearing, and now it's our turn to debate this.
Grace, you met with the librarian, didn't you?
I did meet with the librarian.
Tell him about that kind of experience she wasn't aware of the picture.
Use the mic.
Can you tell him a little bit about the conversation with the librarian? Because she didn't know about some of those pictures, right?
She did not. I did mention the book. She said they weren't there. I told her they were. And then I asked her, do you research? When I was working in a library, we used to process all the books. Which library? So I was processing books. So apparently I did ask the librarian, do you review every book that comes into our library? She says no. They go online and they look at reviews from other people. So there are times that those books go on the shelves and the librarians never look at them. So not even they know exactly what's in that library all the time. That is per my discussion with the librarian that I had a few days ago.
Can we get it on the public record? What library and which librarian, please?
You don't have to answer. You don't have to answer. Go ahead, Councilman McKeon.
No, I mean, just my comments are, just to reiterate, I mean, I know we're talking about the library, but when you read the H item, nowhere does it mention banning books. And I encourage Dave Min to actually read the H item because he obviously did not. And to me, this boils down to a simple question. Is pornography allowed in the public library that is paid for by the taxpaying residents? Just because you illustrate it doesn't mean it's not pornography. Why is this being showcased, put on display, and presented to children under 18 years of age? To me, this is the sexualization of children without parental consent. In my opinion, these books need to be restricted to minors and checked out by the parents. How can you have something that you can't show publicly because of obscenity laws, but it's okay to show to children? I totally agree that parents should decide what their kids should read. Therefore, if they want their children to read legally obscene materials, they will have to check out those books for themselves. It's as simple as that. Tony touched on it. NC-17 movies. You can't go see that movie unless you're an adult, unless you're 18 years or older. What's the difference? It makes no sense. That's where I stand on it. I know, Gracie, you're very passionate about it. I commend you for it. I will move this item. I think it's to protect the children, just to set common safeguards in place. We're not banning books, and I think it needs to be done.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Okay, so in response to the question about why a TV station or something like that would not show just one of the pictures is because it's out of context. You cannot judge obscenity. Remember, the third prong of the test is they judge it by the work as a whole. So yes, if you take one picture and say, hey, put this picture up, yeah, they may say no because they lack that context. That's the reason why. That's the reason why. And I don't doubt your sincerity, and I don't doubt that you care about kids, but the reason why the system is set up the way that it is because of the First Amendment. That's just the way, like I said earlier, if these books were obscene, do you think the city attorney's office wouldn't have noticed that by now? And I'm not trying to, really, seriously. So, hold on. Jesus Christ. okay, because we're talking about the budget, we're talking about service cuts, we're talking about the air show settlement, we're talking about infrastructure, all of this stuff. These things have all been dealt with before. Do you know why the librarian probably didn't know about a specific book and the pictures in it? It's because they go and they rely on the booksellers who say, okay, this book is appropriate for age 3 to 6, and this is recommended for age 7 to 12, and this is recommended for high school age. They rely on those because I don't think that one librarian is going to know what is in every single book, and I think we have like 180,000 distinct pieces in the library. So no, she may not know, she or he may not know, but they're relying on the booksellers. Do you think the booksellers haven't asked their attorneys, hey, if we sell this, are we going to be in trouble? They have. There's safeguards in the system against obscenity at every step. That's just the way the book business works. And I know it may be confusing to some people, but that is the way the First Amendment works. The default is the government doesn't get involved in this. The parents decide. That's the function that the libraries serve for us. The default is they got as much stuff in there as they possibly can. And so, yeah, did I send my kids off to the library by themselves? I didn't. So, I'm sorry that maybe, some parents don't know what's in the books. But that, it's not perfect, but that's the way that it works. So, I just, oh, gosh, sorry.
I would like to weigh in a little bit on this. Honestly, again, I tend to be more libertarian, and when Gracie first started talking about this, I was a little concerned, to be candid. And then when she actually showed me the material, I was floored. I was actually floored. There's no context where a 3 to 6 year old, in my world, that's appropriate. There's no context. And there's no context. Context that a 7 and 12-year-old has that without parental permission. And going back to the First Amendment, look, I agree with the First Amendment, but the First Amendment allows movie theaters to dictate to parents and educate parents, well, this is a G movie. This is a PG movie. This is a PG-13 movie. This is an R movie. This is an NC-17. And a parent has the authority to say, well, you know what? I'm going to look at that movie, and maybe my son or daughter is old enough to do that. But I think the key is to have parents. I'll tell you, I don't think majority of the parents in this community know what's in those books. I was floored what was in those books. And we're not trying to limit anybody's First Amendment. No, we're not. And we're not even talking about banning books. That's a misinformation. That's misinformation. What we're talking about is educating the public and educating our parents, and then they can decide what books they can do. By the way, I've heard a whole bunch of things that was not in our purview. It is, because we're stewards of tax dollars that go into those libraries. That's the bottom line. That's where we come in. And so with that, I'm looking forward to see what options there are. Because again, I'm not for banning the books, but I am certainly for educating the community. And by the way, whatever happens from here, I think Mayor Pro Tem Gracie Vandermark deserves a round of applause for educating the public that this is actually in our library system. And then let everybody decide if they want to get those books or not. But I think Gracie's already done a public service by letting people know that things like that are in our public library. So with that, I'll second the motion from Casey McCann. Councilwoman.
Great, thank you so much. So with regards to the rating system, I think that it's important that your argument misses the fundamental difference between voluntary guidelines adopted by a private industry and the imposition of government restrictions on speech in clear violation of constitutionally protected First Amendment freedoms.
Thank you.
So now that we've had story time with Gracie, thank you. Tonight, I am so proud of my city. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for your thoughtfully written emails that were paragraphs and paragraphs long. Were not copied and pasted from somebody else, were from your hearts. The public comments tonight that were the same way. I appreciate all of your passionate thoughts and conversation about this. What a blessing to see the groundswell of broad and sweeping public support for our library and for the library as a democratic public institution. What a gift to hear about the value and appreciation for our library and for our librarians, one of whom was doxxed earlier in the month by a website where people were getting very upset about the LGBTQ kits that were there, as though that was somehow a horrendous thing to have in our library. Our libraries provide books that become windows and mirrors for readers, allowing them to see themselves and to see in the lives of other people, to better understand and to develop empathy. I guess this item, book banning and censorship, is the fine print of your contract with the community. I'm glad that it's coming to light, and I imagine that it always would. Mayor Pro Tem said that it has been a long-standing problem in public education that children are being exposed to obscene and age-inappropriate material by adults, many of whom are educators whom we have entrusted with our children. She also said our city library should not be engaged in infecting our children with obscenity or pornography, inserting a trope that's commonly used with anti-Semitism. I remember Mayor Pro Tem Vandermark, before she was our Mayor Pro Tem's, past efforts in our schools because they were my kids' schools. Her efforts were chilling then, and they frightened me for my kids, for our kids. I heard lies then, and I hear them now. One of the lies was that our school was teaching Sharia law in school. I heard that from a family member who saw it on Facebook. Enough.
Hold on. Again, I want to repeat that we had over 6 hours of community input. This is our time. Please respect us as we respected you.
So there was no Sharia law indoctrination that was called world religion and world history. And also misinformation about the California Healthy Youth Act at the time. I know that there was a constant misinformation campaign about the curriculum and about what was included in that, and we won't continue to go into that tonight. That can be discussed at the school board meeting that I heard you're attending. Back to the books. And I don't really want to stay on the books because I think that the issue is actually much broader and concerning than the books. But one of the books that was mentioned just now was The V Word, which is a young adult book. And I looked at the reviews on that, and I bolded a couple of things from that. The one thing that they all share, this is true stories about, I'll just read the full thing, about first-time sex, gay, straight, bisexual, transgender, etc., details the sometimes painfully awkward, sometimes blissful experience of choosing to have sex for the first time. The frank, sexually explicit, naturally narratives cover a wide range of experiences, and some are sweet and transformative, others are perfunctory or borderline forgettable. Here's the bold. But the one thing they all share is the importance of sexual agency. Something else that I have bolded here. Each woman makes a choice to have sex in this book, and choice is the key element here. The V in V Word can be interpreted as voice, not virginity. And the takeaway is the importance of a young woman speaking up for what they want or don't want and taking an active role in what happens to their bodies while highlighting the importance of choice. I think that it's really important that's in the young adult section. I also think it's important that parents can review that and that they're able to under the current rules and process of the library. Also, one thing that she read earlier was the "It's Perfectly Normal." And I will say that all the things that you read are factual things that were provided for 10 and up, 10 to 14. And when my kids were little, I spoke to a therapist, and they were very curious kids. And in preparation for when they might ask me questions about sex or different things, I wanted to have the information at the ready at that time. I didn't know when that would be, but I wanted to have it, and I wanted to have evidence-based information ready for me that had appropriate language for their age range. She recommended the series of It's Perfectly Normal, It's Not the Stork, and one of the other ones. It provides young people with knowledge and vocabulary that they need to understand their bodies, relationships, and identities in order to make responsible decisions and to stay healthy. As has been said, book banning sets a dangerous precedent. Once censorship is introduced, it becomes easier to justify the restriction of other materials based on subjective criteria or personal preferences. This slippery slope can undermine the principles of intellectual freedom and potentially lead to further censorship. And we've seen that happen before. It's been discussed historically, and it's also happened across the country. Library policies already exist. Professional librarians helped craft those policies using their training and professional experience. Included in that policy is a request for item removal process. How many books have been requested for removal in the last 5 years? Ashley, could you answer that?
In the last 5 years, we've had 5 materials reconsideration forms submitted.
Thank you. So in 5 years, 5 books, one of which was done by Mayor Pro Tem Vandermark, and it was moved to the adult section because the publisher actually changed the age range, and when they looked at it, they decided, yes, it should be in the other section. So it just proves the process works. If somebody has a concern, they can fill out the form, it will be reviewed, and they will move forward with that. With regards to parents, there are protections in place for parents who seek control over what their children are reading. Accounts to the libraries in Huntington Beach can be accessed online. Every book that is checked out appears in the checked out log. Every book that is being requested appears in the hold log. Parents who are concerned can easily monitor all of this information anytime online. No need to restrict access. They can make their own choices for their families. And I hope that they are already doing so. It sounded like a lot of people here were tonight. With regards to the American Library Association, one, I was shocked to learn that the Mayor Pro Tem did not speak with a librarian before bringing this item forward. And I know that because if she had talked with a librarian, she would have known that we are not part of the American Library Association. That being said, when I asked, why aren't we part of the American Library Association, to our librarian, it's because we don't have it in the budget. That's concerning to me as well, because I want to make sure that we have all of the resources available to our librarians so that they can do the best job in serving our public and the community. We must honor the people and the communities we serve. We cannot normalize the debate around censorship and normalize public debate over the lived experiences of minoritized communities already targeted by right-wing extremists. This represents a national movement of right-wing extremists with populist and fascist motivations, attempting to redefine fundamental principles of American democratic institutions, including our libraries. It is fear-based and rage-baiting. And it's being targeted not just around the texts and books themselves, as being perceived harmful, but at librarians and library workers, who are now being portrayed as groomers, seeking to indoctrinate small children. This is extremist action intends to foment fear and rage around a small group of people. That fear and rage is being directed at our libraries and our library systems. Protecting our libraries and our library workers and communities is essential for the long-term welfare of the public good. Those seeking to impede access to collections and dictate how library workers do their jobs are doing so to silence and obscure the voice and perspectives of those whose opinions the attackers feel do not have a right to full and active participation in American society. And that's a quote. It is an act of erasure. One of the librarians who is now working with teens at the Brooklyn Library as part of the Books Unbanned, said, "Identities are not obscenities. Stories are not pornography. They are possibility." And finally, I think that this whole idea around, this isn't a ban, it's very clear. Again, as many people read out from the dictionary, the words are there. It's a ban. If you move the books from one section and behind a wall, behind a curtain, that's still potentially a ban if they're supposed to be meant for a certain age group, and if you're moving them away from that. If you'd like, you can put a sticker on the outside of the library that warns parents and everyone as they go in that obscene materials might be inside of this place, but they're not.
Again, we've been here, all of us have been here a long time. And listen, again, all of us, whether we agreed with you or not, respected your voice for over 6 hours. Respect all of us as we do this debate like we respected you. Please, let's finish this debate and move on with the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm done.
Any other comments from members? Okay, go ahead, Councilman.
I appreciate absolutely everyone who attended tonight. New first-time flyers and our regular flyers in the audience up here in front who continue to heckle a public meeting, which is so.
Let's go.
Thank you. I have actually a technical question for Mr. Gates. Do minors have constitutional rights? I mean, it's a serious question. Like somebody who's 12, do they have a First Amendment right?
Well, I'm not prepared to give a full dissertation on this entire subject matter.
Yeah.
What I will say is that there are First Amendment concerns,
Right.
but it's clear by the H item that this isn't particularly a First Amendment issue. It could be, but there could also be a policy in place to say, look, we don't want this type of material at a minor's fingertips in the children's section.
Sorry, that was my question. My question, do minors have First Amendment rights? Like, can they go and say what they want on the street corner as an adult could?
I frankly don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I'll answer it. The Supreme Court has said children do not leave their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate.
Well, okay, I'm being fair and saying I don't know because I wasn't presented that question and didn't do the research. That is a different answer to a different question, and it's not fair to characterize that answer as the answer to that question. I don't think
They
that's
do not leave their First Amendment rights at the
broad
schoolhouse
sweeping
gate.
for all, including First Amendment.
Yeah, they
in
don't
this
leave their
context.
constitutional rights. The genderqueer book, by the way, was reviewed by a Virginia court, and the request was to block minors from being able to see it. The Virginia court did not do that, and they also did not declare that genderqueer was obscenity. This issue is being litigated.
So-
And respectfully, I just,
Well, what,
it's a pretty fundamental thing.
And we-
Pretty fundamental thing.
so to fully answer and properly answer your question, we need to come back. There is a different standard for taking books off of shelves and removing them entirely versus making a requirement that an adult consent to checking that book out for that minor. Different standard, different issue.
So, all right, I appreciate that answer. It's obviously complicated. I was accused of calling this a ban when it's not. I think we've run into this problem a couple of times where I seem to have some literacy problems where a proposed ordinance of the city's libraries, other public facilities, making material unavailable to minors. Making something unavailable to someone is, I think, is a synonym for banning that. And so that's where and I apologize if I have an inability to understand that, but that was my takeaway, was that removing something from minors, and that goes to my First Amendment question. If we're taking away something from someone, are we effectively banning it from their use? I think moving this item is different than what was discussed up here, and what I think some of the comments made by council members were, because this says bring back an ordinance as opposed to let's have some conversations and bring back some educated material on how we talk about this. I think all of the issues that were brought up by Mayor Pro Tem can all be solved and have been solved by using the existing process. Some of the material that was shown earlier, I think, is just anti-LGBT if you don't want your kids to see it. I have a 4-year-old who have now taken to all but one of the public libraries in this city, and I don't let her out of my sight when I'm there because she's 4. She also can't read, so to have a child, and again, we're confusing the term child with young adult and adolescent and teenager in this conversation, and we're grouping them all together. And I was an abnormal adolescent and teenager. Probably still am abnormal, but the peanut gallery here is just so fun tonight, so fun. I look at some of the material that was presented, and I don't think a child is capable of, if they see the front of that book, they're not going to be able to pull it out and read it and understand what's going on. I think for the Grandpa's Pride, they're going to see 2 people dressed in costumes giving each other a hug. They don't understand what the implication that adults do and are putting upon what a child, I think, can understand. So it's frustrating that, again, someone and folks that really talk about parental rights, we want to make sure parents are understanding, are basically calling parents that they don't know what's in there and we're going to protect you from what's in the library. And that's effectively what you described earlier this evening is what you want to do, is you want to protect parents, but not children. You want to protect parents from allowing their children to see things that you believe are inappropriate for them. When we had this, so I've been doing this now for 12 years, sitting through public meetings. This is the most people I've ever had come out to a public meeting. This is the most emails I've ever seen, and this is the most lopsided I've ever seen an issue like this. We did the Beach Edger Corridor in 2015 that had, out the door forever. I was not part of the Poseidon hearing in 2005, or 2010, but I heard that went on until 6 in the morning. Anybody 10 to infant is accompanied by a parent inside the library. So we're looking at 11 through 17, I guess, and at 18 you're an adult. So now we're in this smaller group of folks. Most of those books, I don't know, if they don't have pictures in them, I'm assuming, an 8-year-old's really not going to be interested in pulling them off the shelf. And I've become this very large libertarian of, no government overreach and that lets parents decide what they want. And it's just disappointing that that we're at this point. I was disappointed to get the PowerPoint presentation today at 9 o'clock to see what we were actually talking about. I spoke with the librarian at length as to what policies are in place, and I was actually surprised that you were the one that used the policy, Mayor Pro Tem, to affect the change that you actually wanted. So I'm confused as to why we want to continue putting us into potential nebulous legal space, right? Like, this seems really, really like a bad idea to get the city involved in. We heard from every, I think, retired educator in the city sent emails in or showed up, librarians from all over the city and state were sending emails in, and we heard from a lot of parents tonight that want to maintain their right to decide what they want their kids to be able to check out. And if their kids are 12 and they want to drop them off at the library, it's, at some point, it's caveat emptor, right? Like, we have to assume that our residents are smart people that know what they're doing and know what's best for their children. And obviously, we try to put guardrails on things. And if parents have an issue with something that's being portrayed in our public library, it's not for me to get involved in that situation. Like, my job is to make sure that there's funding to keep the lights on in the library, and literally now, I guess. I'm just surprised that this item came forward in kind of such an interesting way, right? That it actually it's not just the idea that I think Councilmember McKeon brings up, that this is actually bringing back an ordinance. I think that there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation involved in this, and I obviously won't be supporting this. I think the system currently works. Again, I've been on council now for 2.5 years, Planning Commission for 8 prior to. I haven't heard a single peep from anyone about content in our library. This is a solution looking for a problem, or a problem looking that didn't exist. We would have had parents coming down to the podium saying, you have things in our library we don't want. I don't recall anyone coming to the podium in the last couple of years. I don't recall, I mean, again, we didn't see it on planning, but this never seemed to be an issue here. And again, we heard from many, many parents who were absolutely against this. I think we heard from a couple of folks, but that said that they were supportive, that had children, but I didn't hear any, my child pulled this off the shelf and I caught them reading it and I was really disappointed that this was in our library. I did not hear that tonight. I did not read that in the probably 800 emails we got, but I didn't hear an actual anecdotal story of someone being harmed by this, by our current policy or by any of the books in our library. And what you read all tonight was accurate and educational. Sounded like similar things that I got in 8th grade and in high school in health class. And I tell the story that in 9th grade, we did health in the Los Alamitos School District. Guy sitting behind me was a senior. It was a freshman class. I asked him, why are you a senior? And he was like, my mom didn't want me to take this in 9th grade. So I was just surprised, but it was random to have a senior in that class. But it does show that there's systems in place to solve these issues. And again, I don't think this is a broken issue. This is some sort of issue that I think brought out a lot of new folks to start paying attention to what's going on in our city now, and I'm just disappointed that this was brought up this way. Thank you.
Councilman Burns.
Yeah, we're not talking about young adults. Young adults can vote and they can do other things. This is kids, 17 and younger. And I don't want to use that term young adult because a young adult can vote and do a lot of other things. You can say it, but we're not talking about banning. I don't think we ever intended on banning. You can use it's a lot, like you said, Dan, Councilmember Kalmick, a lot of misinformation has been put out there, and it's unfortunate because a lot of people have been misled that it's we're not against queer people or anything like that. We're not banning books. The real intent of this is to protect kids from really mind poison or unwanted viewing of material that they shouldn't probably view. And a lot of those pictures right there, if they were shown in a movie, that movie would probably be rated R if it was just shown in the movie. the one kid going down on a penis is not something that should be in a kid's book or in the kids section or anything like that. There are many, many, many laws that restrict kids' access to things. Well, sex under 18 in California is illegal. They can't, it's statutory rape. Yeah, they're gonna do it, but they can be prosecuted too. And they can't buy spray paint, they can't buy cigarettes, they can't buy booze. There's a lot of things that we restrict kids and if the parents want to give it at their home, I wouldn't suggest it, but they'd probably get away with it. But this is really about the parents being able to kind of have knowledge that those books are there, to use a little more sense in supervising their kids to have the access. To me, it's a kind of a simple, hey, there's some explicit stuff that I didn't like seeing. And I was a cop for 30 years. I saw some ugly ass crap in my life. Mind poison that I wish I never, ever saw, that I can't get rid of out of my head. And I can tell story after story, and some of it would make you blush. Jesus. I have plenty of stories, believe me. We keep pushing the boundary, and that's what I'm afraid of. We keep pushing the boundary. 20, 30 years ago, that stuff would be unheard of in a library, a public library. I can't imagine 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that's some of that stuff be like, oh, and let's put this in the kids section. Some of those books are. They say it right there on the covers. We can debate it. Those are kids. They're kids. I don't care if it's teenager. Teenagers are kids, and they're more influential than anything. And it's dangerous to try to encourage any kind of sexual activities. Okay, I'm really about to drop the F-bomb to say shut up.
Hey, all right. Ms. Councilman, I want to say it for the last time. We had over 6 hours of your voices talking to us, and we were respectful. Allow us as a council and give us that same respect. Thank you.
We keep pushing the boundary, and it's like I keep worrying, what's next? Are we gonna say pedophilia is okay, pardon all of them, say, hey, sorry, we're gonna expunge your records, and now, you know what, since you guys are the experts, why don't you guys teach sex ed to our kids? Make these books required readings for 8-year-olds. We keep pushing the boundary. We need a check. We need to stop, check, and reanalyze this if it's appropriate. According to the speakers, some of the council, emails, the hate flyers, really, if they were put in, those hate flyers that you guys want banned and that's just so scorned, if those were put on a rack in the library, according to a lot of the stuff I've heard tonight, those would be perfectly okay. And I'm not saying that that's a freedom of speech thing. The guy who got caught said, I'm gonna keep doing it because I can. Is it right? I wouldn't say so. Is it illegal? No. But it's still, I think it's wrong, but he still can because that's the law. And I just think, like, where are we going with this? Are we going to start okaying writing books about how to become a gentle pedophile? How to buy and use heroin in an easy way? There's a lot of things that we can, but like I say, I'm scared of the direction this whole society is going, and I'm just asking that we check it. We check it. I'm not saying ban it. I say we check it. And the parents got to know what's in the library because not even a librarian knew some of the stuff that was in there. Words, pictures, images matter. They're scarring. Some stuff you cannot erase. And some of that, if that's shown, and I would say the 5-year-olds are safer, but an 11-year-old who doesn't know anything, who might just be getting their first pubes or something, they're going to sit there and it's going to scar them. That they will remember. They will remember that. And that scares the hell out of me because they're not ready. That's why we don't give driver's license to kids at 10 years old. They're not responsible enough to handle the responsibility. You know, Rhonda, you know what? I wish you you're adding a lot of great stuff. I wish you would have put that to an election, to council. That would have been awesome. But you guys, it is parents. I love this, what I've heard a couple people say, that parents should be responsible for their children. And that's what this is all about. Just asking parents, letting them know what's there and let them be responsible. If they want to check out that book and have that kid read and they want to have story time with that book, that is their prerogative. There's that I would not say, I would not recommend it, but if that's what the parent wants, they're raising that kid, more to it. And really, I just want to get back to, this is all about protecting the kids. And that's my big effort in this. And for that, I would support the evaluation and check.
Wait, Councilwoman?
Just in response to that, I think that it's important that we're precise. And you said that young adults are 18 and older, right? But young adult fiction is fiction written for readers from 12 to 18 years of age. And the term young adults was first used regularly in the 60s in the United States. And I think that we should be precise. We're talking about libraries and books, and the reality is none of us have masters in library science, as far as I know. So therefore, none of us should be the ones reviewing these. I'm not done.
Yeah, but some of us don't have common sense, obviously.
Oh, okay. So the other thing is you keep talking about pedophilia with regards to this, and I'm concerned about why you keep likening this to that, because I don't see the connection to that. The other thing is, I think it was intentional that all of these printed posters were all mixed up, right? A lot of these different books are in different sections of the library. Some are in the adult section, which we discussed. Some were in the children's section. Some were in the young adult sections. Those were all different places. But all of those posters were together, all mixed up. You're talking about a situation before of something that you wouldn't want to see. That was the genderqueer book.
All those pictures? I don't know.
But that's the thing, you don't know because it wasn't cited, because everything's all mixed up. That's the genderqueer one that Mayor Pro Tem actually had moved, and maybe there's another one too, Gracie, that's quite possible. If anything, it's not in the children's section.
4 different books in there.
Okay, well, we don't know because the titles weren't there in the slides.
The covers are printed right on the picture.
Right, on the slides in the presentation, the titles are not there. And I'm sorry, any presentation that I've given in school, my master's program, you have to cite your sources and say what you're showing. I think it does a disservice to everyone when you're not showing the information. It should have said what section that it's in, what the title is, and all of that, but that was excluded from that. But the point is also, if you look at this presentation, it says Huntington Beach Library children's books. That's just false. These were not all children's books. Why did you even say that? I'm done.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to supplement one of my earlier responses in the spirit of being precise, the question about whether children have constitutional rights. I did some quick research on the spot, on the fly. There are some cases that recognize children engaged in speech, but that standard does not apply when they're being exposed to obscenity. Totally different standard, totally different context.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
But that would indicate that obscenity is in the library, correct?
And obscenity is not protected by free speech.
All right. So with that, this item's been moved. It's been seconded.
Mayor?
Yes,
Could I ask a quick question?
please.
Just so that I have an understanding, and Michael and I were talking, would the council want us to come back, I think Mayor Pro Tem, you said September, with a study session of different options, or versus?
Yes, I'm open to any options, any recommendations from staff, from the city attorney, from you, whoever. We just need to find a solution to this.
Okay, clarification on how you wanted us to come back. If that's the,
And
Yes.
does the motion also include I don't know how you distanced yourself from the ALA, so I want to understand if someone
what?
asks. So the second item is to start a process to part ways with the ALA. I thought that was a new point if we're not part of it. Right, I wanted to be clear
it's-
that there wasn't
it's-
additional.
Because
Okay.
we're not.
All right.
Thank you.
So it's been moved, it's been seconded.
All right, so just to be clear, because there's a lot of language in A, that you won't be bringing an ordinance back. You're going to bring ideas and via a study session in September. I mean, you'd have to rework the language a little bit.
Okay, let me
Is that fair?
clarify. Let me see if I clarify, and it's not my item, but Mayor Pro Tem, correct me if you think that this is not what you're looking for. Direct the city manager to work with city attorney to return back with options on a study session of different options that a council might have with the public library with potentially inappropriate material for kids. Is that good? Okay, obscene.
Come back with a study session with different options.
Okay.
To us, how we can put safeguards in place from children having access to obscene material.
Well, and that raises another question because of the discussion, and for sake of precision, again, obscenity is one issue, but there was age inappropriate. Those were words used as well, and then also content was of a sexual nature. Is that everything or just obscenity?
Everything.
Okay.
All right. All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
All right, that's a little bit more clear. Thank you.
And also, did you get that modification? We'll be changing it until September.
Yes, absolutely, and I will I'll refine this a little bit watching the tape in the morning, but anyways, okay, so we know what we're doing. All right, we'll go ahead and vote. Councilmember Kalmick?
Nay.
Mosher?
The tragedy, no.
Mayor Pro Tem Vandermark?
Yes.
Strickland?
Aye.
McKeon?
Yes.
Bolton?
Nope.
Burns?
Aye.
All right, so the item passes 4-3.